Adolphus Busch built the Adolphus Hotel in Dallas in 1912 with $1.5 million of Anheuser-Busch brewery money, declared it the most beautiful building west of Venice, and was correct, not merely as a matter of civic pride, but as a matter of architectural record that the building's French Baroque exterior and its interior of dark oak paneling, coffered ceilings, and stained glass still communicate to anyone who walks through its Commerce Street entrance today. The building has been continuously operated since 1912. It has changed ownership multiple times, been renovated multiple times, and been managed under multiple brand affiliations across its century of operation. It has not been demolished. It has not been converted to non-hotel use. It has not filed for bankruptcy in any period where those proceedings would have produced a permanent change in its operational status. But the Adolphus is not the most important hotel in Dallas anymore. It was the most important hotel in Dallas for approximately 60 years, from its 1912 opening through the era when downtown Dallas was the commercial, civic, and social center of the metropolitan area, and when the Adolphus, as the most architecturally significant building in the downtown, was the default address for presidential visits, political dinners, social events, and the accumulated civic business of a Texas oil city whose establishment needed a venue commensurate with its ambition. The moment the Adolphus ceased to be the most important hotel in Dallas is the forensic subject of this episode, the specific transition in a city's economic geography that converts a grand hotel from a civic institution, the place where the city's most important business happens, into an amenity, which is a lovely historic building where guests stay because they appreciate history, and where the city's most important business no longer happens because the city's most important business no longer happens downtown. Subscribe now, because the Adolphus case documents a failure mode that does not appear in any financial statement. The failure mode of becoming irrelevant to the economy you were built to serve. The Adolphus Hotel's position in Dallas between 1912 and approximately 1980 reflected the specific role that grand hotels played in the commercial geographies of American cities before the suburban dispersal of the post-war period redistributed economic activity, political power, and social life away from the downtown cores that had originally generated the demand for hotels of this quality and ambition. Downtown Dallas in the 1940s, 1950s, and 1960s was where Texas oil deals were structured, where political alliances were formed, and where the social hierarchies of a rapidly growing southwestern city were expressed and reinforced through the specific rituals of the Adolphus's ballrooms, its Century Room supper club, its presidential suites, and the casual commerce of its lobby. Franklin Roosevelt stayed at the Adolphus. So did every other president who visited Dallas through the mid-20th century. The Texas Democratic Party's most consequential meetings were held there. Oil company mergers were negotiated in its suites. Debutante balls occupied its ballrooms. The Adolphus was not merely a hotel. It was the physical infrastructure of Dallas's civic life. The transformation that converted the Adolphus from civic infrastructure to historic amenity was not produced by any failure of the hotel's management or any change in the quality of its product. It was produced by the same suburban dispersal that converted downtown Dallas from the city's economic center to one district among several in a metropolitan area whose commercial geography was being reorganized around the automobile, the freeway, and the suburban office park. When the Dallas Galleria opened in 1982, it became the preferred address for the retail, restaurant, and hotel activity of the northern Dallas business community. The energy companies, the financial firms, and the professional service organizations that had previously oriented their business lives around the downtown. The Crescent Court Complex, which opened in 1986, provided a luxury hotel and office address that served the same northern Dallas business community without the downtown commute that the Adolphus's Commerce Street location required. The Adolphus did not lose its quality. It lost its geography's relevance to the customers who had defined its purpose. The specific financial consequence of a grand hotel's transition from civic infrastructure to historic amenity is not immediately visible in the hotel's financial statements, because the RevPAR at a historic hotel in a partially revitalized downtown can be commercially adequate for an owner whose acquisition price reflected the downtown market rather than a suburban luxury hotel's premium, while being commercially inadequate for an owner whose acquisition was financed at a price reflecting the hotel's civic history rather than its current market position. The Adolphus's ownership history between 1980 and the present documents this specific dynamic. A series of acquisitions, renovations, and brand affiliations that each reflected someone's assessment that the hotel's historic significance could command a premium sufficient to justify the acquisition price, followed by operating realities that documented the gap between the historic premium and the downtown Dallas hotel market's actual RevPAR trajectory. The most financially precise version of this dynamic occurred in the late 1980s and early 1990s, when the Adolphus's ownership under the Bass Enterprises investment entity reflected the specific challenge of serving a downtown Dallas market that had contracted sharply in response to the Texas banking and real estate crisis, documented in broader terms in Case File 056's examination of the savings and loan crisis architecture. The Adolphus survived that period. The downtown Dallas market around it did not thrive. The hotel's continued operation reflected the specific resilience of a property whose historic significance attracted a customer segment: heritage travelers, history enthusiasts, event planners seeking authenticity that is not primarily driven by the downtown's economic vitality. But heritage travelers do not fill 407 rooms across 52 weeks. The Adolphus requires group business, corporate travel, and the convention attendance that a hotel of its size needs to achieve the occupancy and rate levels that service its renovation debt. The concept of amenitization captures the specific financial condition that the Adolphus documents. The transition from being the primary reason customers come to a location to being a secondary attraction that captures customers who are already in the location for other reasons. A hotel that is the primary reason customers visit a destination can price its rooms to reflect that primacy. A hotel that is an amenity, a beautiful and historically significant place to stay that guests choose after they have already decided to visit the location, must price its rooms competitively with the alternatives available in the same market. The Adolphus competes with the Jewel Hotel, the W Dallas Victory, the Omni Dallas Convention Center Hotel, and the Rosewood Crescent Court, each of which offers competitive physical standards and brand affiliations in markets that serve different segments of the Dallas hotel demand base. The Adolphus's historic significance is a genuine differentiator. It is not sufficient to produce the RevPAR premium that would make it the most financially powerful hotel in its competitive set. In 1950, it was the most financially powerful hotel in Dallas because it was the only hotel of its quality and civic significance in the market. In 2024, it competes in a market whose quality standards have advanced beyond what its historic fabric can match without renovation investments that the historic designation's restrictions complicate. The Adolphus is not failing. It is continuing, but it is continuing as an amenity rather than as the civic institution it was built to be, and the financial consequences of that transition are expressed in the RevPAR premium it can command relative to its competitive set rather than in any single financial event that produces a court filing or a distressed sale. The transition from institution to amenity is the most common form of grand hotel decline that never produces a bankruptcy proceeding. It is the form that does not appear in this channel's financial case files because the hotel continues to operate. It just operates at a different scale of relevance than the one its founders intended. This content was developed using artificial intelligence tools as part of the research, writing, and production process. All AI-generated material was subject to human review, editorial intervention, and approval before publication.